Welcome to the Plant Trainers Podcast, where we're helping people improve their quality of life through nutrition and fitness. And now, your hosts, nutrition and wellness coaches, international speakers, Adam and Shoshana Chaim.
Hey, I'm Adam Chaim.
And I'm Shoshana Chaim, and we are
Propelled by Plants. Today we bring to you episode 272, Finding More Gratitude Through Traditions.
In today's episode of the Plant Trainers Podcast, we are, of course, talking about finding more gratitude through traditions. Since this episode is coming out the day after Thanksgiving, we thought it would be a good time to discuss the topic. Giving thanks and spending time with family doesn't need to happen only one day a year. Sometimes we feel people are simply going through the motions with the holiday seasons or traditions. So we wanted to challenge you to think outside the box.
Take the time to really understand what gratitude is and how you celebrated your Thanksgiving, and possibly even come up with new meaningful rituals in your everyday life or during your upcoming celebratory days. Just as an exercise, we thought that if you could think of at least 3 people who you're grateful for, and you could send them this podcast with the link planttrainers.com/272, add a little note of gratitude and ask them to pay it forward. Let's see together how many traditions we can make much more meaningful this season. The cool thing about Instagram is that it really highlights the quote, "A picture is worth 1,000 words." We've been having a great time with Instagram and with Instagram stories, bringing plant-based living to life for all of you. There's so much we can cover on the Plant Trainers podcast, but we also want to help inspire you and give you more tools for everyday living. Whether we're posting about our own meals, our workouts, general healthy lifestyle tips, food shops, blogs, time-saving tips, or the occasional goofy thing our plant-powered kids did, we put it up there for you. So be sure to follow Plant Trainers on Instagram and say hi, interact with us. We love getting to know you there. And now for a moment of gratitude.
I'm grateful for the opportunity to help my children and see my children take part in activities that they love and enjoy, whether it's arts, whether it's sports, whether it's going to the park or riding their bikes, just making sure that they have the opportunities to do the things that they want to do and seeing the smiles on their faces when they're really enjoying it.
I'm grateful for reconnecting with one of my cousins who I ran into unexpectedly. And we spent some time talking and catching up, and I'm looking forward to doing some more of that.
All right, it's October, and it is Adam and I here with you today. We do not have an interview planned. We are going to be talking to you about something that is very dear to our hearts, which is gratitude. And actually, when we have people on the podcast, one of the things that we hear the most is actually that we do this unique thing and take a moment of gratitude before we begin the interview, and that we send thank you notes to them later showing our expressed gratitude. And it's kind of something that we're known for, I guess.
How did we start doing that? Do you remember? Why did we start adding our moment of gratitude?
Moment of gratitude we just did from the beginning. I think that it's we always take time to be grateful. We do it in the morning and at night. It's part of our routine for meditation. I think that was something that we always did. And then we didn't always send thank you notes to the interviewees. So if you were on this podcast quite a long time ago and you didn't get a thank you note, you did get a thank you email, but we switched into thank you notes. I think after we did some work with Blake Fly, and we've had Blake Fly on the podcast, and even before we had him on the podcast, we just realized that taking the time to write something by hand has so much more meaning these days than just putting it in an email. Not to say that emails aren't good, but, to take it a step even further.
And so we started off giving our own moment of gratitude, and then we started asking all of our guests for theirs, which, as you said, was something that all of our guests are very happy to do and excited to share, and people really like that we do that, because hopefully that's sparking the listeners to take a moment out of their day to think of their own moment of gratitude. And that's really why we started doing it, I think, to try to get more people to pay more attention to what they're doing, what they're thinking about, what they're grateful for.
So when we say the word gratitude, I think everybody could kind of come up with their own words to explain it. But deep down inside, we all have that same feeling when we're actually feeling gratitude. I decided to look it up on our good friend Google. And basically it said the readiness to show appreciation for and return kindness for the quality of being thankful. So I thought it was really interesting how it talks about the word quality. I would have said for the feeling of being thankful, but I guess when you use the word quality, it means that there's different degrees, different levels of gratitude that one could feel. And I also like that it said return kindness, that you want to do something in return. How would you describe gratitude yourself?
I don't know. It's a tough word to explain. I mean, it's definitely about feeling of appreciation and being able to acknowledge what you have in your life and just be thankful for it. I think that we often take advantage or don't pay attention to all the great things that we have. And this is the moment where we need to really appreciate and be happy with what we have, because we're all at different levels, of course. And the other thing is that when you're taking that moment to be grateful for something, it's pretty hard to be upset about something else or angry about something else. So it's a good way to break up your feelings, break up your thoughts, and add a bit of change into your day.
I know some people sometimes have trouble thinking about what they're grateful for, and they say, I'm grateful for my house, or I'm grateful for my family. And when you do that, that's a great start. But if you want to feel like you're living a life of abundance, then you could start to break that down further. And actually, Jessica Dugas, who is on the podcast also, she's taught me a lot about gratitude. And she says to break it down. So not just your house, but what about your house are you grateful for? Your roof, the door to your room, your bed, the floor, your hot water, the running water. And once you start to think about what in that bigger item you're grateful for, who are those family members and why are you grateful for that, you really come from a place from abundance. So even if you feel like, you're in that depressive state, it's fall now, it's gloomy, the days are getting shorter, and you really need something to lift you up, thinking about all of these things instead of just a couple of big things, breaking it down really helps. I wanted to also take a look at the word thanks, because when you look that up, it says an expression derived from thank you to express appreciation. So I thought it was really interesting because it's talking about an expression and not actually talking about a feeling. Like when we talked about gratitude, it said, that quality. But here it's just kind of a word. And it makes me rethink, using the word thanks. It's something that we type all the time. Also, I type thanks, or that's how Siri.
Of course you do.
Because Siri doesn't correct it for me. When I'm texting, I just type thanks, but I mean to write thanks. But it makes me rethink the words that I'm using and how can I change the way that I'm saying something. And instead of saying thank you so much for that, can I say I'm grateful for that? And does that change the meaning that I'm expressing and the way that the other person is reading it?
So they're interchangeable, you're saying? Gratitude and thanks?
No, I'm saying they're not interchangeable. I'm saying that one has a greater, deeper sense of meaning or a bigger... it's coming from deeper in your heart, and you actually have that feeling of reciprocity, that feeling of your life wouldn't be the same had they not done that, as opposed to thank you just rolls off the tongue and is losing its meaning.
But if I end my emails or thank you cards with thanks and then write my name, or I change that thanks to with gratitude, does it not mean the same thing? You think it means more because you're changing the word?
I do, but I also think if you're changing it with intent. So if I'm writing...
So it's all about the attention that you have, but somebody reading it's not going to necessarily know what you intended by the word.
Right, but I think that the universe will help them to understand it. I mean, if you're writing a letter, if you're sending an email and you just are saying, a grocery store, and you're like, I left my umbrella there, can you please take a look for it? With my sincerest gratitude. I mean, that's going to be a little weird because you don't know the person, and are you really that grateful for an umbrella? Or I couldn't come up with a better example. There are definitely some times where you're not going to write, sincerest gratitude. Maybe that person's not doing anything for you on the other side of the email other than reading your email. Maybe you're doing something for them. But when it really comes down to, a guest taking the time to spend 45 minutes or it ends up being an hour here with us.
Or a listener listening to the show for that long.
Yes, a listener listening to a show, or somebody mentioning us on Instagram, or DMing us on Instagram, or a neighbor feeding the cat while we're gone. I would write on that thank you note sincerest gratitude a lot more than I would do thanks, because I want them to actually feel it.
Right. So we're talking about semantics again, and it's vocabulary, but our intention is really what is the important driving force behind whichever word we choose. And the person receiving that word will take it as they read it. But we know what we've put into it, and that's what's important to us.
Yeah, but also every time you speak and every time you type or write, it's always the intention. You never know how the other person's going to read it, especially, in emails and texts and all that, all these misunderstandings that happen.
Right. And I'm sure there's some people listening that are like, oh, gratitude, that's bogus. It's a bogus word. It means nothing. Well, gratitude. I make my money. I buy my things. I'm materialistic. I'm grateful for nothing.
I don't think we have listeners like that.
No, we probably don't. I don't even know what I'm talking about.
Okay. So what I want you out there to think about is, do you take time in your day or your week to be grateful? And how can you make it more meaningful? Are you all about thanks? Can you change your vocabulary? When I wake up in the morning, when my alarm goes off, or if I wake up before my alarm, the first thing I do is try to think of 3 to 5 things that I'm grateful for. I try to break it down. I try to think about why I'm grateful for it, if my mind doesn't get, set off track with all of these other thoughts that start going through. But that is really how I try to start the day and end the day. And then there's so many other times that I'm, grateful throughout the day. And I want to try to make it a little less mechanical.
Right. So listeners out there, are you grateful for things daily? Do you have a daily routine that you think about your gratitude? And if you do, great. What can you do to step it up a little bit more? If you don't, how can you begin?
So it might be some of you out there saying, what Adam was saying before, yeah, I'm grateful, but I don't really need to, make sure that I'm grateful on a regular basis. And this is an exercise that I do with a lot of my one-on-one coaching clients. So I usually tell them, this is something that I'd like you to start doing. How would you want to incorporate into your day? And I normally just hear silence on the other side of the phone, and I kind of just wait. And then it's followed by a question, or it's followed by a, yeah, I guess I can do that. And then we figure out how to incorporate it into their day or their week. And then when they come back to me the next week, they seem to have some good stories, how it helps them see themselves in more of a place of power or abundance. And they could really make healthier choices throughout the day. And it does affect their mental health as well. So if you're thinking, yeah, well, you're not alone, but there are some really great things that could come out of it.
That's a great activity.
So part of the reason why we are talking about gratitude today is because it was just Canadian Thanksgiving yesterday, if you're listening to this on the day that it comes out. And we have Canadian Thanksgiving here. It's the second Monday of every October. And of course, in the States, American Thanksgiving is in November. So we can play this recording again in November.
Well, we could reshare it. We could play it out.
Yeah. And, I think that there are different Thanksgivings throughout the world. And that's something that we kind of go through the motions on, like a lot of the holidays out there. So we're going to give Thanksgiving as an example just because it's timely, but this can really work for any holiday that's out there. We don't really think too much about the traditions that we're starting now. We don't really think too much about where these holidays really came from. So for example, U.S. Thanksgiving began as a celebration because the Pilgrims came and they harvested in 1621 in Massachusetts, and that's why we have American Thanksgiving. And then Canadian Thanksgiving began in 1578, according to Google. I didn't even know this stuff, because there's a tradition in Europe in early October also because of a harvest, and they're blessing everything from the last year, and that began in Newfoundland. So
do you think people actually know that? Like, I bet you if you asked 100 people, like the Family Feud does, what Thanksgiving is all about, I don't know if people would even realize.
Top 5 answers on the board. Turkey.
Right.
Wishbones.
Family.
Cranberry sauce.
Right. So, I mean.
Football.
Think about it. So this is a holiday that's been created based on historical events that has become more of a tradition, I think, rather than an actual holiday. And this is what we wanted to talk about, finding ways to add more gratitude into the traditions that we already have. So do the people getting together at the Thanksgiving table really talk about Thanksgiving and why they're there? They are providing thanks by
in the
having
form
dinner
of a meal.
in the form of a meal together with their family. But are they really taking the time to express themselves to each other and talk about what they have in their lives and what they're so happy and grateful for? I'm not sure that that's happening.
And I'm sure that it's really busy and people are like, oh, I'm trying to get all the food on the table and nobody helps me cook. And my sister-in-law is so mean to me and everybody's just bothering me because we don't have a turkey and we're only eating plants. But, this can really be a good opportunity to think about the holidays or the big events or the celebratory things that come up in your life and how can you change it and bring more gratitude in it. And part of the reason that kind of sparked this in me is because recently we lost Adam's stepdad, which was very hard for us. This was just a couple of weeks ago. And going to interrupt this show for a minute because I wanted to tell you that I was thinking about you earlier. Yes, that's right, you and all the people on Facebook and Instagram who are always asking me about how to make healthy lunches for your kids. The best way for me to do that is not to tell you, but it's to teach you in our school lunch guide a way to making it easy and healthy. It's also about helping parents and their children to come together and decide on healthy lunch items that kids agree to eat and creating a structure around the lunch making to keep the guesswork out of it, to keep early morning frustrations away, and really to avoid that after school wasted slop from being a daily ritual. It really doesn't take more than 20 minutes to do together, and it will save you hours later on. I thought of you because I know that you're trying to create easy and healthy lunches your child will actually eat, so you can feel like a rock star parent and your child can actually get the nutrients they need to grow and learn. Would you like to see it? Check it out at planttrainers.com/shop or click the school lunches link in the show notes. And now back to the show. And our stepdad was part of an Orthodox synagogue. So, that you could think of that as much more traditional, much more religious, although not every single day of his life or our lives are really lived that way. That's the type of synagogue that we belong to. And you normally get very strict rabbis. But what we really loved about this rabbi is that he helped us understand what was actually tradition, what was actually law and what's actual tradition. And a lot of times we mistake tradition for law in our religions because we maybe don't know enough. And he really said there are certain things that you can do, and as long as it's what feels right to you, you can do that. You could start a new tradition. You don't have to follow the traditions that have been done. We need to follow the laws, right? We need to make sure that it's done in a certain way and that it's proper, but you could begin a new tradition. And then it got me thinking, how many people have started new traditions and kept it up, and how many more of us can take part in that. And if we could throw gratitude into that mix, or we could throw our healthy lifestyle or our ethics into that mix, then even better. And I think that we'd all enjoy the holidays a lot more, because I know, especially on the plant-based side, a lot of us dread the holidays because all the cousins and aunts and uncles are coming over and they're just going to scrutinize for not giving your kids animal protein.
Which is why we have great plant-based recipes at planttrainers.com/recipes, where you can make beautiful food to bring to those wonderful events and start your own traditions.
Right. So what are some of the traditions that you might want to bring in? I think the first thing that you might want to do is you might want to think about what's most important to you. What do you value? And I've heard about Friendsgiving. So we don't really celebrate Thanksgiving too much, but I'm going to talk at the end about how I want to start to incorporate it into our lives a little bit more. But Friendsgiving is when you have like this big meal with your friends, and these are the people who you've chosen to be your peeps. It's not just your family who you're mandated to be family with. And I think that's really great too. So sometimes the weekend before Thanksgiving or after Thanksgiving, friends are getting together and, having a little party. So I think that's kind of cool. And that sets in with a lot of people's values.
It could be any time of the year, really, right?
It could be. And maybe
it could be multiple times too. It doesn't have to be a one day a year thing.
Yeah.
Or do you want to make it more special by having it as one day a year thing?
Yeah, but also the calendar's done a really good job at making sure that, every couple of months we have something going on, some kind of event. So even if you missed this episode for Thanksgiving this year, you could use it for any holiday, for Easter, for Passover, for Christmas, Friendsgiving, for the May 2-4 weekend. Is that a Canadian thing or
Yes,
an American
it is.
thing? Okay. All right. So, all right. So, yeah. So think about where it aligns with your values and your ethics. And then, start to really give thought besides what food you're going to put on the table. So we talked about reflecting on the year, right? Like that Canadian Thanksgiving was about being thankful, being grateful for everything that's happened in the year before, not just necessarily being thankful for that food that you're putting on the table. So what lessons did you learn from the harder times? What amazing things came up? What can you share with people around the table? What messages do you have? And why is it important to you? And really, if you have children or children at the table, they're going to pick up on that and they're really going to learn from that, because we're kind of learning all of this as adults. What if it's just natural for them? What a world of abundance they can live in.
I think something that we could all do a little bit better is that we could express ourselves to each other and tell people how much you love them and tell them how great they are and thank them for all the things that they do, and do all these things while they're still around and you're able to, and not wait for someone's eulogy to pop up or someone to be gone and you say to yourself, oh, I wish I told that person this, or I wish I had the time to spend with this person and mention that. So I think we need to start living in the moment a little bit more and speak our truth and speak to people face to face, on the phone, through letters, but do it while they're still around for us to be able to do it, because that's something that I know a lot of people regret and miss out on, and there's really no reason for it. We really need to take the time to let people know how we feel, and don't be afraid of how you feel, and share it out.
About a year ago, I started texting my mom and saying thank you. And it was usually thank you for something. And it was usually also sparked because my kids would do something that would drive me crazy, or that I'm like, oh, I got to go do this again. So I would just, text my mom and say, thanks for driving me to all those activities all those times, or thanks for putting up with me when I didn't want to eat dinner, or something like that. And now I just text her and I say thanks. And she's always like, okay, for what now? And no thanks needed. But I like that I do that, because really she did a lot for me growing up, and I probably did not take the time then to say thanks. So another thing that you can do is write letters of thank you to the guests who are coming. So maybe as little name cards for whatever kind of dinner you're having, even if it's just, a Sunday night dinner, you could, just write, thank you for always being there for me. It has really helped. Thank you for helping me with the down payment on my car. That was awesome. I couldn't have done it without you, or my life has changed because of you. Just a little, instead of putting a little
I like that.
Name card.
Like when you put their name card on their plate, you also write a little sentence for them.
Yeah, or you can give it as a parting gift if you're not doing it so formal, like, hey, make sure you pick up your envelope on the way out. It does take a lot of time, but it really does lift you up and maybe even makes you happier, which can make you more productive in other areas of your life. So that time might be really well spent.
Well, I think
really well spent.
Really well spent. But I think the best part of that is that it's going to lift someone else up also.
For sure.
Not just yourself.
Of course, because, and then, a lot of us don't know how to take compliments. I noticed that just yesterday, from when we're recording this, I did a photo shoot for a yoga clothing company. And they kept saying, oh, you're so pretty. Oh, that pose is amazing. Oh, you're so good at this. And
Lies.
Maybe it was lies, but I didn't know how to deal with the compliments.
It was not lies.
I didn't know how to deal with the compliment. Yeah, because people are going to write you and
All
tell
truth.
you how mean you were.
All truth.
But I didn't know how to take the compliment, and I was really embarrassed by it.
You just say thank you.
Oh, I did. But in my mind, I was like, what? But it's hard. So we need to practice getting the compliments and receiving gratitude. That's a big part of it, how to receive that gratitude.
Yeah, it is. And sometimes you just got to accept it and be happy that you got those compliments and just say thank you. So
a lot of these celebratory events that we have really do have food there. Let's face it, food is a big part of it. And one thing that you can do in terms of tradition and in terms of gratitude for the community around you is shop local, support local farms, let people at the table know that to encourage them to do the same, so that they can be grateful too. And really just, we're so lucky wherever it is that you live, there's got to be something growing somewhere near you within 100-mile radius. So try to put in an effort to, repay those people by purchasing their products and not buying it being shipped halfway across the world. It's probably going to be healthier. It's probably going to have more nutrients is what I mean by that. Maybe even less preservatives. There's so many great things that could come out of shopping local. So you can try that.
One of the other things that I think most people forget about is treating themselves well and taking care of themselves and being grateful, yes, for all the materialistic things and all the things that they have in their life. But sometimes we forget about ourselves, and making new traditions for ourselves are very important to do when we want to think about our mental clarity, our health, our well-being. We have to stop for a moment from putting everything on someone else and start reflecting about ourselves. So are you really taking good care of yourself? Are you really doing the things that you need to make yourself the best you could be? Do you exercise regularly? Do you meditate? Do you eat well? These are all questions that you need to ask yourself that might help you spark a new tradition, and your tradition might be just getting into a new routine as you come into a new season, for example. So adding some movement, adding a new exercise each day. Figure out something that you could do to create a new routine that's going to help provide more tradition and gratitude for yourself. Because I think a lot of the time we overlook ourselves.
And if we're going to just drop the gratitude for a second and just think about these rituals and these traditions that we're creating for these celebratory events, if exercise is important to you, then you don't have to give it up on that day because you're spending all day in the kitchen or entertaining or driving halfway across the city. Try to incorporate exercise into some of those traditions. So, you might have a pre-dinner football game, get all the cooking done in the morning, or have more of a potluck style and have everybody go to the park for a football game, or have everybody take a walk after dinner, then come back and clean up. How can you take those values that are important to you and help other people to see them, but not sacrifice that for the other things that are going on that day, making sure that you still take care of you? The other thing that you can do is you could post some inspiration on social media. So show your gratitude for other people, or just mention that you've been grateful, or post your delicious plant-based meal on social media. Of course, you should tag us at Plant Trainers, especially on Instagram or Facebook, but try to inspire other people to be grateful as well and to create their own traditions as well.
And use it as an opportunity to set an example for other people and be that lighthouse for people to look up to, and really show them that you're setting up these new traditions. You're learning yourself how to become more grateful for everything in your life. And before you know it, people around you are going to start asking you questions. They're going to start doing the same thing as you're doing and wanting to figure out how to improve their lives so that they can do the things that you're trying to accomplish, but in their own way, because we're all on our own journeys. But some people are going to just need that light to look up to. So why not give them that inspiration, be that shining light and guiding light, and help them get to where they want to go?
And of course, we didn't mention some of the things that you know already or have thought about already. There are gratitude calendars, there are gratitude journals. There's so many other ways to be grateful consistently on a regular basis, but we kind of wanted to tie this into more of the holiday season so that, we can, again, take it outside the box.
Right. So like we said at the beginning, we want you to figure out ways that you can use gratitude to make your traditions a little more meaningful. What are you going to do, no matter where you are, what level of gratitude or gratefulness you practice right now? What are you going to do to step up your level or to begin becoming more grateful on a regular basis? And how are you going to incorporate that into either the existing traditions you have for the upcoming holidays or for the new traditions that you're going to build out? And we'd love to hear how you're going to do that.
And one of the ways that we are going to do that this year, which Adam might not know yet unless he read the notes all the way through, is we're going to sit down. We're going to sit down as a family and we're going to write 1 or 2 thank you notes that we could either give to people in our community, give to friends, give to family, or mail to people who live a little bit further. We could write those thank you notes on actual thank you notes, or we could, the kids love, using recycled paper and gluing on all their whatever sequence and drawing pictures and just showing a little bit of gratitude for some of our friends, family, neighbors, and maybe even make a little basket to go along with it. I don't know that. I haven't gotten too far out, but I would like the kids to be active in this with us and think about people they're grateful for, tell them why they're grateful for it and how it's affected their life. And, that'll be part of our tradition. We don't do that big, huge, fancy dinner, but I think that's more meaningful to me, sitting down and actually doing something, taking some action.
I like that. We're going to do that. That sounds very good. And for those of you that want to let us know how you're increasing your gratitude level, you could email us at info@planttrainers.com or just tag us on social media and let us know what you're doing. And let's just end off with saying thank you to the listeners for being here and for supporting the Plant Trainers podcast.
I'm grateful you're here.
Thank you so much for listening to this edition of the Plant Trainers Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or any other podcast listening platforms. We appreciate the feedback we receive from you. Every time we get a 5-star rating or review on iTunes from one of our fans, it ensures other people will find us too. Thanks to our patrons. To become a patron, visit www.patreon.com/planttrainers. Even supporting us with $1 really makes a difference. Connect and follow us on Instagram and Twitter @PlantTrainers. Like Plant Trainers on Facebook, join our newsletter, and check out our website at www.planttrainers.com for awesome plant-based recipes and a list of our services. Email your questions to info@planttrainers.com so we can answer them on our upcoming Facebook Lives. We hope we've inspired you today. Join us again next time and have a healthy day.